An Army intelligence officer returns home after 18 months, but her 7-year-old son seems to have become a different person. He is cold, his eyes lifeless. His stepfather claims it's just a developmental phase, until she discovers the horrifying truth hidden behind the silver flecks in her son's eyes. Who could turn a child into the subject of a cruel experiment? And who is truly behind it all? The early autumn air at Portland International Airport was thick with the scent of damp asphalt and pine, a persistent drizzle casting a gray sheen over everything. For First Lieutenant Kaylin K. Vance, 24, it was the first breath of home she'd had in 18 months. At an age when her peers were navigating their first real jobs, she carried the weight of her rank and the ghosts of an intelligence deployment in the Middle East. She stood out from the travel-weary crowd, not because of her simple jeans and dark gray hoodie, but because of the rigid posture and the sharp analytical gaze of her dark eyes that scanned the arrival gate. Her athletic build was coiled with a nervous energy, her long brown hair pulled back in a severe, functional bun. Then she saw them. Her son, Leo, and her husband, Dr. Alistair Finch. Leo, at 7, was the center of her universe, the reason she pushed through every grueling day. He was a bright, energetic boy she'd had at 17, forcing her to grow up faster than anyone she knew. But the child standing by the gate was a stranger. He stood unnaturally still, his small frame swallowed by a neat navy blue jacket. Alistair, a distinguished neuroscientist nearly 20 years her senior, stood beside him, a pillar of calm sophistication. He was tall and lean, his salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, his tweed jacket and cashmere sweater radiating an effortless academic authority. He smiled, a practiced, gentle expression that never quite reached his cool blue eyes. "Mommy?" Leo said, his voice a flat monotone. The word lacked all its usual warmth. Kay knelt, her arms open for the crushing hug she'd dreamt of for months. Leo stepped into her embrace but remained stiff, his small arms hanging limply at his sides for a moment before he pulled away. The void he left in her arms felt colder than the Oregon drizzle. "He's just going through a complex emotional development phase, Kay," Alistair explained on the drive to the coastal town of Port Blossom, his tone patient and slightly condescending. "His world is expanding. Sometimes he just needs to be in his own head." The modern house, all glass and steel overlooking a churning gray Pacific, felt more like a laboratory than a home. Kay tried to engage Leo, asking about his friends, his favorite superheroes, but his answers were clipped, his eyes distant. That evening, unpacking his school bag, a cold dread began to creep up her spine. The usual chaotic, colorful drawings of Spider-Man and Captain America were gone. Instead, she found page after page filled with geometric shapes perfect, interlocking hexagons drawn with a mechanical precision that felt alien for a 7-year-old's hand. Later, as Leo sat under the warm glow of a reading lamp, Kay noticed it, something shimmering in the deep brown of his irises. Leaning closer, she saw them clearly. Tiny, unnatural flecks of silver, like fine metallic dust, suspended in his eyes. "I think I should take him for a walk, check up," she said to Alistair later that night, her voice tight with a control she didn't feel. He sighed, placing a hand on her shoulder in a gesture that was meant to be comforting but felt dismissive. "Kaylin, you're only 24. You've been through an immense amount of pressure in the Army. I know it's hard, but you can't let a young mother's anxiety and the stress from your deployment color your judgment. Trust me, I'm a scientist. Leo is perfectly fine." His words, a calculated mix of diminishing her age and leveraging his professional authority, made her second-guess herself, but only for a moment. The instincts honed by years of intelligence analysis screamed that this wasn't just anxiety. That night, sleep was impossible. She slipped into Leo's room, the silence broken only by his soft breathing. A frantic urge propelled her. She began to search. On her hands and knees, she ran her fingers along the underside of his wooden bed frame. Her fingers brushed against a small, smooth object. Taped securely to the wood, hidden from view, was a used transparent medical patch, and next to it, a tiny glass vial. It was empty save for a few residual drops of a shimmering, viscous silver liquid. Isolated in the oppressive silence of the living room, Kay scrolled through her contacts until she found a name she hadn't called in years. Colonel Marcus Thorne. A man with a reputation for being as tough as iron but fair, he had been her mentor at the military academy, the first to see her raw analytical talent. He had retired abruptly after a family tragedy, retreating from the world into a self-imposed exile. The voice that answered was gravelly, laced with disuse and old sorrow. "Vance? What's wrong, kid?" "Colonel, I'm sorry to bother you." Kay hesitated, the words catching in her throat. "I just got back. Things are strange with Leo." She didn't give details, only conveyed the profound unease that had taken root in her soul. Marcus was silent for a long moment, listening not just to her words, but to the fear behind them. The instincts of an intelligence officer never lie, Vance, especially when it comes to family. Don't let anyone tell you you're too young to know what you're doing. Be careful, he said, before the line went dead. The brief call was the only validation she needed. It wasn't PTSD, it was a threat. Kay operated on instinct and training, the suburban home becoming a new kind of battlefield. Before dawn, she used a sterile field kit from her go bag to carefully collect a sample of the silver liquid. She packaged it and, using a secure courier service she trusted from her Army days, sent it to a private lab in another state under a pseudonym, paying extra for a rush analysis. The vial itself, with its faint, unfamiliar logo, stylized A intertwined with a helix, she photographed and sent to Marcus Thorne. "I need to get out, clear my head. Meet some old friends," she told Alistair that morning, her voice a mask of casualness. He readily agreed, eager to see her act normal. In the garage, while pretending to check her car's tires, she deftly attached a magnetic, coin-sized GPS tracker to the undercarriage of Alistair's sleek sedan. From a nondescript coffee shop downtown, its windows fogged from the autumn chill, Kay watched the dot on her phone's screen. Alistair didn't go to the university. He drove north, along the rugged coastline, stopping at a location far from any campus. It was a stark, modern facility perched on a cliffside, surrounded by a high-security fence. A single cold metal sign read, "Ethelred Neurodynamics." The name sent a chill down her spine. The response from the lab came back moments later. "Compound unknown. Complex synthetic nootropic with metallic protein binders. Highly experimental, not for human use." That night, the house was a tomb of secrets. Once she was sure Alistair was asleep, Kay moved. His home office was protected by a state-of-the-art security system, pressure plates, infrared sensors, a biometric lock on the door. To Alistair, it was impenetrable. To Kay, who had bypassed more sophisticated systems in hostile territories, it was a puzzle to be solved. Within 10 minutes, she was inside, the only sound the soft click of the door closing behind her. His computer was encrypted, but she had anticipated this. Using a decryption key she had designed herself for field missions, she sliced through his firewalls. She found it buried deep within nested folders, a project file labeled Chimera. Her blood ran cold as the files opened. It was all there. Leo's entire life, quantified and cataloged. Brain scans, neurological response charts, and detailed notes on the effects of synaptic compound argentum-3. A key document labeled him Nexus Host 01, citing a rare genetic marker that gave him extraordinary neural plasticity. This wasn't treatment, it was exploitation. "What do you think you're doing?" Alistair stood in the doorway, his calm facade shattered, replaced by a raw, panicked fury. He lunged for her, not to attack, but to get to the computer. Kay reacted instantly. He was bigger and stronger, but she was faster and far more lethal. She sidestepped his clumsy charge, using his momentum against him. A sharp, precise strike to his brachial plexus numbed his arm. A swift leg sweep sent him crashing to the floor. The heavy thud echoed through the house. A small cry came from the hallway. Leo stood there, his eyes wide with fear and confusion. There was no time. Kay grabbed the encrypted hard drive containing her copies, scooped her son into her arms, and fled into the misty Oregon night. Hours before the confrontation, her phone had buzzed. It was Marcus. His voice, once just tired, was now fractured with a terror that spanned a decade. "Kaylin, that logo!" he choked out. "It's a new iteration. From the company that took my daughter. He finally told her the story he had buried for 10 years. His daughter, Ilara, a brilliant spirited girl of 15, had vanished from her locked bedroom after weeks of strange behavior, drawing complex astronomical charts, complaining of a buzzing in her head. And yes, he told Kay, his voice breaking, he had seen them just before she disappeared, faint, shimmering silver specks in her eyes. The police called it a runaway case. They said I was a grieving father lost in conspiracies, he whispered. I knew they took her. Now I know who. The chilling parallel between Ilara and Leo solidified their grim alliance. As Kay sped away from the house, her son shivering in her arms, Marcus's final words echoed in her mind, a promise of sanctuary and a declaration of war. Come to the cabin in the Olympics. It's safe here. We're going to end this. Marcus Thorne's cabin was less a home and more a fortress tucked deep within the ancient forests of the Olympic National Park. Built from thick cedar logs and reinforced with steel, it was a relic of a soldier's paranoia, now serving as their sanctuary. For the first few days, the sanctuary felt like a prison. Leo was trapped in the torment of withdrawal. He thrashed in his sleep, screaming about singing numbers and the silver man in his head. Kay held him through the convulsions, her own exhaustion a distant second to her son's pain. She was no longer an officer. She was just a mother, whispering stories of brave knights and distant stars until his small body would finally still. During the brief moments Leo slept peacefully, she and Marcus worked relentlessly at his oak table, the glow of a laptop screen their only light. With Kay's modern decryption skills and Marcus's old-school analytical mind, they peeled back the layers of the Chimera hard drive. The truth was more monstrous than they had imagined. Ethelred wasn't just developing a nootropic. They were building a hive mind, using children with Leo's rare genetic marker as living nodes in a biological supercomputer. Leo was the nexus, the central processor. Then they found a buried archive, a precursor project named Prometheus. Marcus's breath hitched. A single file contained a grainy photo of a smiling, dark-haired teenage girl, Ilara Thorne, Host 0. The notes detailed a failed initial trial, an unstable reaction, and a final, chilling entry. Host viability compromised. Protocol dictates termination. Asset expunged. Marcus stared at the word terminated, his face a mask of stone. The grief he had carried for a decade didn't erupt in a shout, but condensed into a cold, diamond-hard resolve. They didn't just take her, Kay, he said, his voice a low growl. They erased her. We will make them answer for every last child. A week after their arrival, the storm broke. Leo, finally free from the chemical haze, sat by the fire, drawing. He looked up at Kay, a genuine bright smile spreading across his face for the first time. He held up a piece of paper. It was a crayon drawing of a stick figure in a cape, standing over a tangled black scribble. That's you, Mommy, he said, his voice clear. You're my superhero. You chased the loud man out of my head. Tears streamed down Kay's face as she hugged him, a wave of profound relief washing over her. Her son was back. The moment was shattered by a sharp electronic beep. A red light flashed on Marcus's security console, the perimeter sensors. He brought up the thermal camera feed. The screen showed a dozen heat signatures, clad in tactical gear and armed with assault rifles, moving in a coordinated pattern through the ancient trees, encircling the cabin. They were here. Kay, get Leo to the storm cellar. There's a tunnel that leads out to the creek, Marcus commanded, already unlocking a hidden weapons locker. You're not fighting them alone, Colonel, she replied, her voice steady. The mother's relief was gone, replaced by the cold focus of an officer. The sanctuary had become a kill box. They escaped the siege under the cover of a moonless night, the forest fire they'd started as a diversion, casting hellish shadows behind them. In a sterile motel room hours away, Kay knew that running was no longer a strategy. It was a delay of the inevitable. They had to go on the offensive. She made one call. The man she met in a rain-slicked Seattle diner was Ben Carter, an investigative journalist whose life she had saved in Syria. He looked like he ran on stale coffee and righteous indignation, his trench coat perpetually wrinkled and his dark hair always looking like he'd just run his hands through it. He was cynical, sharp-tongued, but possessed a core of integrity that Kay trusted. He listened intently, his tired eyes widening as Kay laid out the hard drive and the files. "My God, Vance," he breathed, pushing his glasses up his nose. "This is the story of a lifetime." He agreed instantly. The plan was audacious. While Ben prepared the explosive story, coordinating with federal contacts to ensure a raid would be ready, Kay set the trap. She sent an anonymous, encrypted message to Julian Croft, the CEO of Ethelred. He was a man known for his polished public image and ruthless ambition, always seen in impeccably tailored suits with a confident, predatory smile. The message was simple bait. "The Nexus host is unstable. I can deliver him for a price. We meet at the Future Forward Gala." The gala was the epitome of corporate arrogance, a glittering ballroom filled with Seattle's tech elite. Croft was on stage, speaking of a new era of human potential, when Kay emerged from the shadows at the side of the stage. She was dressed in a simple black dress, a ghost from a world he had tried to bury. "Is that future built on the stolen minds of children, Julian?" she asked, her voice cold steel, amplified by the microphone. Croft's smug confidence faltered. Before his security could react, every massive screen in the ballroom simultaneously switched from his corporate logo to the headline of Ben's now published story, Ethelred and the Chimera Project, a crime against humanity. Panic erupted. As federal agents stormed the ballroom, Kay's phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "All children secure." It was over. 6 months later, the legal storm had settled. Marcus Thorne, his testimony a quiet, devastating indictment of the system that had failed his daughter, became a national advocate for victims of corporate crime. The sentences were severe. Alistair Finch received 40 years for illegal human experimentation and kidnapping. As the mastermind, Julian Croft was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Ethelred Neurodynamics was dismantled, its assets seized to create a recovery fund for the victims. On the windswept beach of Port Blossom, the autumn sun cast a gentle golden light. Kay, now a civilian, watched Leo chase the waves. She had submitted her resignation. Her promising military career was over, but she had never felt more certain of her purpose. From the porch of a small beach house, Marcus watched them, a genuine smile on his face. He had become the grandfather Leo never had. Leo ran back to her, his laughter carried on the sea breeze, and threw his arms around her waist. Kay held him tight, breathing in the salty air. At 24, she had fought in a war no one knew existed and won the only victory that ever truly mattered. Kaylin's story is a testament to the fact that a mother's love is the most powerful force on Earth. Some might see her victory as the result of training and strategy, but at its heart, it was a miracle. It was the miracle of a love so fierce it could stare into the abyss of science gone wrong and not blink. Leo's recovery wasn't just medical. It was the triumph of a God-given bond that no chemical compound could ever break. In our daily lives, we all face giants that seem too powerful to defeat. Sickness, injustice, fear. This story reminds us that we are all armed with the capacity for miraculous love. It is the quiet strength that protects our families, the unwavering faith that guides us through darkness, and the hope that allows us to be a light for others. It is the divine spark within each of us, waiting to be unleashed. If this story of a mother's miraculous love touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that faith and love can conquer all. Comment below and tell us about a time when love created a miracle in your own life. And be sure to subscribe for more stories that celebrate the strength of the human spirit. May God bless you and all those you hold dear. Thank you for watching.